When the aircraft arrived from London Heathrow earlier that morning, the previous flight crew had reported a frozen door seal and abnormal noises coming from the right aft service door and requested a full inspection of the door. The inspection was carried out by a ground engineer who then performed a pressurization leak check. Carry out this check, the pressurization system was set to manual and was not set back to auto on completion of the test.
After the aircraft was returned into service, the flight crew overlooked the pressurization system on three separate occasions during the pre-flight procedure, the after-start check and the after-takeoff check. During none of these checks did the flight crew notice the incorrect setting of the pressurization system and did not set it back to auto.
The flight was scheduled to leave Larnaca, Cyprus at 9:00 local time to Prague via Athens. The scheduled arrival time in Athens was 10:45. Hans-Jürgen Merten, a 59-year-old German contract pilot hired by Helios for the holiday flights, served as the captain. Pampos Salalimbus, 51-year-old guy, a Cyprus who flew for Helios, served as the first officer. 32-year-old Luisa Volturi, a Greek national living in Cyprus, who served as a chief purser, replaced a sick colleague. Relating to this flight, it consists of 121 people, which can be divided into 115 people as passengers and 6 of crew members. Then, the plane moved from the apron to the runway and prepared to take off. The aircraft took off at 9:07 with the pressurization system still set to manual and the aft outflow valve partially open. As the aircraft climbed, the pressure inside the cabin gradually decreased. As it passed through an altitude of 12,040 feet, the cabin altitude warning horn sounded. The cabin altitude warning should have prompted the crew to stop the climb, but it was misidentified by the crew as a take-off configuration warning, which signals that the aircraft is not ready for takeoff and can only sound on the ground.
In the next few minutes, a number of warning lights on the overhead panel in the cockpit illuminated. One or both of the equipment, including warning light, came on to indicate low airflow through the cooling fan, as accompanied by the master caution light and the passenger oxygen light illuminated when, at altitude of approximately 18,000 feet, the oxygen mask in the passenger cabin automatically deployed.
Shortly after the cabin altitude warning sounded, the captain radioed the Helios Operations Center and reported the takeoff configuration warning on and cooling equipment normal and alternate offline. He then spoke to the ground engineer and repeatedly stated that the cooling ventilation fan lights were off. The engineer asked, "Can you confirm that the pressurization panel is set to auto?" The captain, however, disregarded the question and instead asked in reply, "Where are my equipment cooling circuit breakers?" This was the last communication received from the aircraft. The aircraft continued to climb until it leveled off at FL340, approximately 34,000 feet. Between 9:30 and 9:40, Nicosia ATC repeatedly attempted to contact the aircraft, without success. At 9:37, the aircraft passed from Cyprus FIR into Athens FIR without making contact with Athens ATC. 19 attempts to contact the aircraft between 10:12 and 10:50 also met with no response, and at 10:40 the aircraft entered the holding pattern for Athens Airport. At the Kievor, still at FL 340, it would remain the holding pattern under control of the autopilot for the next 70 minutes. Two F-16 fighter aircraft from the Hellenic Air Force 111th Combat Wing were scrambled from near Angelos Air Base template citation needed to establish visual contact. They intercept the passenger jet at 11:24 and observed that the first officer was slumped motionless at the controls and the captain's seat was vacant. They also reported that oxygen masks were seen dangling in the passenger cabin. At 11:49, flight attendant Andres Prodemo entered the cockpit and sat down in the vacant captain's seat. Prodemo held a UK commercial pilot license, but was not qualified to fly the Boeing 737. Crash investigators concluded that Prodemo's experience was insufficient for him to gain control of the aircraft under the circumstances.
In any case, he did not have time to save the stricken aircraft. Almost as soon as he entered the cockpit, the left engine failed out due to fuel exhaustion. The plane left the holding pattern and started to descend. 10 minutes after the loss of power from the left engine, the right engine also failed out, and just before 12:04, the aircraft crashed into hill near Grammatico.
Most of the bodies recovered were burned beyond visual identification by the fierce fires that raged for hours in the dry brush and grass covering the crash site. However, it was determined that a body found in the cockpit area was that of male flight attendant template. Citation needed and DNA testing revealed that the blood on the aircraft controls was that of flight attendant Andres Prodemo, a pilot in training with approximately 260 to 270 hours of training completed. Autopsies on the crash victims showed that all were alive at the time of impact, but it could not be determined whether they were conscious as well. Furthermore, was not originally scheduled to be on the flight. He joined the crew so he could spend time with his girlfriend, a fellow Helio flight attendant. Cause of the plane crash accident: Helios Airways Flight 522. 1. The pilot does not check before flying. They must change from the switch manual to auto, which is a part of the pilot's mistake. 2. The crew was unable to accurately determine the cause of malfunction. 3. The crew had hypoxia at that time. Hypoxia is a depletion of oxygen that leads to unconsciousness, but alive. 4. According to the history, it was also found that the plane had a problem with adjusting the air pressure inside the plane. In addition, the rear door has a problem making it impossible to close completely, but all of this has not been repaired or modified to meet the standards. 5. The plane runs out of fuel. In general, the fuel of the plane is according to the distance of the flight or in case of an emergency that the plane can't land. But with Helios 522, the plane stayed afloat for almost 3 hours, causing insufficient fuel